Hi guys, welcome back. Tonight I will be reading some scary ocean stories. Now, if you suffer from fear of deep water or thalassophobia as I do, please, if it gets too much, click off. Also, please do consider subscribing if these and other stories are the sort of thing you enjoy listening to. Is very much appreciated. Okay, please get comfortable. Close your eyes if you prefer, and relax. So, this is from the site Board Panda, and it's asking Reddit users, sailors, scuba divers, surfers, and others, have you seen or experienced anything on or in the water that gave you the creeps? What is your creepiest ocean-related experience? So, I was doing a deep dive certification with an instructor in Dahab, Egypt. We went down to 40 meters and I did a math test to check if I was thinking straight or knocked on nitrogen. I aced that test, performed it faster and better than on the surface in the comfort of an air-conditioned classroom. My instructor was happy and we carried on with the slow ascent. Little did I know that I was completely knocked and confused the button that blows the BCD up with the one that dumps the air. Basically, I was sinking vertically without even understanding my mistake. That's when the instructor came to my rescue, and everything ended up well. Best part of the whole experience, it was all on film, and the people in the dive centre saw it and kind of congratulated me on being alive. When I saw the video, I was amazed at how happily stupid I looked, smiling and kicking my fins, thinking I am going up while actually descending deeper. That was a good lesson for me not to underestimate the nitrogen narcosis and the effects it has on the mind. Pretty scary. I've posted this before, but it's been a year or so F it. So this is Proper Babby's first free dive material, and I've since learned I'm terrified of the ocean. So this probably isn't that scary to most people. However, I was on a boat tour that stopped off in a small bay with effing beautiful, crystal clear light turquoise water and nearly white sands. We just finished swimming with some stingrays when the tour guide offered to take some of us out for a swim in deeper water. I was hesitant, as he said the current can get quite strong and I'm not the best swimmer, but he said I could join them for as long as I felt comfortable. So I came along. There was a small group going at a leisurely pace that I could clearly see, so I decided to do some free diving. As I said, the water was gorgeously clear. I was diving down to these little reef outcrops and checking out the fish, and had barely looked ahead of me other than to check on the group. I finished inspecting another little coral group and turned around to see where the group were, and suddenly saw the sandy seafloor disappear over a knife-sharp drop-off. The water was so deep and inky blue with no seafloor in sight, and my stomach somehow dropped into my ass and jumped into my throat at the same time. I surfaced ASAP, got as far away from the drop-off as possible, and tried to pretend I never saw it. That is pretty scary. That's one of my fears. Dark water. Not creepy, but a basic, straightforward scare was descending for a wreck dive in Roatan, Honduras, when a really large and swam away. It followed us, then dropped back. Next, we watched it approach our dive master, who was facing the other way and distracted helping another diver. We were desperately trying to get his attention about the imminent attack. Then we saw it wind itself through his legs and twirl around him for a few pats, and discovered it's a friendly eel. Later learned that other people had been feeding it, and it was habituated to humans. That's info I would have appreciated up front, so we wouldn't have been so scared. Oh. Pretty much anything that moves under the water is creepy if my head is above water. Underwater, it's the opposite. Nothing bugs me. I've gone diving with sharks many times. They don't make me nervous at all. Jellyfish do though, especially in Southeast Asia. This one time I was really spooked was I was skin diving in the Galapagos. I went down quite deep for me, maybe 6 to 7 meters. I see an absolutely massive manta ray lying on the seafloor, bigger than me by maybe 40 kilos, maybe more. Continued on my way looking at the colourful fish. When it came time to ascend, I turned towards the manta again. It had been tracking my movement and moving towards me. When I looked at it, it stopped. I felt like it was up to no good. It felt very threatening. It didn't like me being there or something. Maybe it thought I was lunch. Dunno. I got the F out of the water and went to have a beer to calm my nerves. Scuba diving in Vanuatu on the President Coolidge, very famous wreck dive that you can walk from the shore and dive the bow from 15 meters all the way down to 70 meters. I was 14 at the time and my parents were lifelong divers. We dived the Coolidge twice that day already, and our guide offered a night dive to us. We were supposed to only dive down to a depth of 25 meters and check out these flashlight fish that would school together in a cargo hold. They had these really bright green eyes that looked amazing and lit up underwater. I still don't really know what happened that night, but it felt like we were staring at these fish for forever. Suddenly I didn't feel right. My breathing felt funny. I tried to grab my gauge to check how much air I had left. It took every bit of muscle I had to reach for my gauge connected to my waist. I slowly grabbed it and read that I had about half a tank left. Relieved for a split second, but still concerned something was wrong, I reached for my mum to signal her something wasn't right. I grabbed her arm but couldn't hold on. I just started sinking to the bottom. My mum quickly grabbed my arm as I fell, but I had no leg movement, so I started dragging her to the bottom with me. My dad now realises something's wrong and grabs my mum, trying to pull us all up. The dive guide is now freaking out and trying to make sure everyone is alright. They all start swimming me back up and into shore. Once we got up closer, I started to feel normal again, but a bit dazed and confused. Turns out I had nitrogen narcosis and had dropped to 40 meters when I couldn't swim anymore. For those of you who don't know what nitrogen narcosis is, it's when you have too much nitrogen in your body and it gives you an intoxicated effect. Nothing too hectic, but still a vivid memory of thinking I was going to sink to the bottom of the ocean, not being able to do anything about it. It's creepy. I was scuba diving at a shipwreck. Awesome experience. Very dark though, which had me on edge. Not a very well preserved wreck, but it was awesome to see everything down there. There was a huge expanse of open water to the side of the wreck that kind of began to slope off. And as we left the wreck, we saw a huge huge tiger shark floating in that open water. My friends and I just swam back to our ship slowly, and it didn't really follow, but if you know anything about tiger sharks, you know how aggressive they can be, and how menacing one would look in the dark water. Seeing something like that in that environment with that level of darkness, it was the evening, is terrifying. The fact that it could hurt you if it wanted, and you can't do anything about it, makes it 10 times worse. All you can really do is keep calm and keep your distance. Remembering this around large, dangerous aquatic creatures has always worked for me, and I've never been harmed. In hindsight, it was a very beautiful moment, but I didn't think that at the time. I do a fair bit of cave diving in North Florida and help out with exploration projects. I've got a couple. One is mine, one is a friend's. So my friend was checking a lead in an offset sink to see if there was anyone going cave one afternoon. Offset sinks are physically distant from the main cave conduit, so while a primary trunk passage may have lots of clear groundwater, an offset sink won't get much water circulation, so rainwater and runoff will tend to stay there for a long time. They're typically very murky and brown, clearing as you approach main cave passage. He's about 100 foot in at a depth of 40 or 50 feet. Nothing insane, but it's braille diving, trying to feel his way around while running a line to see if anything goes. He comes across a wall about a foot in front of him that looks a bit unique. Oftentimes you'll see cool patterns of mineral build-up in cave walls, floors, or ceilings. So he's appreciating this cool pattern when that pattern opens its mouth and shows off its teeth and tongue. Turns out a not insignificantly sized gator lived in that sink and wasn't happy about the home invasion. He set a new speed record getting back to the surface of that particular sink. Gators aren't uncommon down there, and they usually leave you alone, but not when you get that close to them in their own territory. My story was a bit less exciting but pretty somber. I was doing a dive in the back of a fairly regularly travelled cave system, but in an area where a body had been recovered from about a mile back the week prior. That area isn't as regularly dived due to the logistics and cave passage geometry. It's not a small dive to get back there. The recovery was really challenging, and there were signs of damage to the cave as we swam along where the body had been forced through restrictions, through mud, etc. The real reality check came when we found his mask in the mud several thousand feet back. It had been dislodged along with his nose. Ew. While the recovery divers tried to force him through a small area, it really drove home the reality of where I was and what I was doing, and the respect necessary for the environment. Ew, but finding his nose. I was surfing Scripps Pier in San Diego about 6 years ago. It was flat, onshore wind, really messy conditions, but I spent 40 minutes driving there and said, I'll just get in the water and paddle around a bit. There was nobody in the water. I decided to paddle around the pier, going from the north side to the south side. When I reached the last pylon, a huge fin popped up about 5 feet in front of me. I knew instantly it was a massive white shark, 12 to 15 feet based on the size of the fin. I've been surfing my whole life. I've been in the water with dolphins many times. This was 100% not a dolphin. This fin was more triangular, with a serrated backside, almost like a steak knife, with a sandpaper-looking texture. Dolphins have more scoop in their fin and very smooth texture on their skin. The The way it swam gave me instant chills, fishy, more side to side and straight than the classic up and down, coming up for breath dolphin. I froze, trying to control my panic, waited for it to disappear, and as smoothly as possible turned my board around, paddled through the pier back to land. It was absolutely checking me out, but didn't show any interest towards me. Since then, I'm not that afraid of sharks, but I still get the chills thinking about that day. I was in the Navy going through the Bermuda Triangle. There was this intense storm. They called away low visibility watch in the middle of the night, so different people go to different places on the ship to see ahead or behind and tell the bridge if they see anything. I was in the HCO tower, aft looking over the flight deck, destroyer. The lightning was so intense that there were no breaks. The lighting was so intense that there were no breaks. It was like daytime, torrential rain, but the water was as smooth as glass, other than the rain hitting it. It was weird. Also, our magnetic instruments went haywire. Somewhere between Oahu and Kuwaiti, not sure if I've said that right, a green object appeared at night so bright that it lit up the inside of the bridge and then followed the ship. I was asleep and heard about it from the bridge watch the next day. It was locked, so it happened. I will tell you that it got a lot of talk going, and I learned from more senior sailors that most of them have a UFO sighting story, and for anyone that has spent a long time at sea on duty, they have all seen something. Not really creepy, but still kinda weirds me out. First deployment on a submarine. Reactor scram drill. Lost propulsion. I get backup propulsion online and they start restarting the reactor. Supervisor says, "You feel that?" "No, we're sinking out." They get the reactor back up and the engineer announces to expedite getting main propulsion online. Normally calm, but there's a hint of panic in his voice. Shifting back is a bit touchy for technical reasons, so normally you do it a bit slowly. Supervisor shoves me out the way and does it so fast smoke literally comes out of the panel. All gets well soon, but I hear later that a bunch of people were watching the depth indicator. Looks like an odometer, just spinning as we went down. As I heard it, we did slightly exceed max operating depth. Also hearing active sonar from inside the boat is kinda creepy. Not gonna lie, going on a submarine is not my idea of something enjoyable. I was diving off the coast of Okinawa, a relatively small island south of Japan, at night with a couple of buddies. We were making our way down approximately 150 feet when we hit the bottom and see a four-door sedan just sitting down there. We all kinda gurgled at each other in surprise and made our way over to it. Inside was a briefcase, a kid's school backpack. In Japan, all of the kids wear the same style of backpack and it's very distinctive. And a couple of coffee mugs, but no bodies or anything. I was familiar with the model of car and it wasn't more than 5 years old. Everything was pretty well preserved too. In retrospect, I wish I had opened the potato box to see if there was paperwork for the car, but it didn't feel right to disturb the well-preserved scene. After we made it back to shore, I started doing research into accidents in the area, but there was absolutely no record of anything related to what we found. Kinda creepy, but also cool. I'm glad there weren't police know about it and give them the coordinates on our way out of the area, but we never heard anything else about it. Someone's commented, potato box. Can't say I've ever heard that one before. Hope the people who were in the car made it out and were okay. Okay. I remember a couple of years ago, a buddy of mine had rented a boat out for my birthday to go out in the sea with. It was going perfectly fine. The boat was super nice, good for fishing, had a great deck. When he told me he was going to rent one, I thought to order a new fin to scuba with. It was a mono fin since I had never gotten a chance to use one. I've been practicing with it, so it was perfect to use it out in the sea. We started to go out off the coast of the Cape and the water was a bit chilly, but not ice cold. We were maybe 22 miles out from the coast while still having an eyesight of the shore. My friend brought fishing baits and rods for us to use later on, but after I was finished scuba diving, I was ready to get off the deck of the boat with my wetsuit and monofin, my tank resting on my arm before I was going to donk in. After a couple of minutes, I had this really weird chill down my spine. Not paranoia, but superstition. I brushed it off and put my tank on my back, followed by my goggles. I felt that weird superstition feeling again, but it quickly switched to paranoia when I saw a pair of glistening eyes in the ocean. At first, what I thought was a shark. It had not been a shark. I've had my fair share of training for 6 years with sharks and other deep ocean water creatures, so I thought I'd be able to handle this. It slowly started making its way towards me. When I got a better glimpse at it, it was huge, and I mean massive. Its teeth were poking on the side of its jaw, and even had razor-sharp fins. And how I know this wasn't a shark, because they have more a smooth, rubbery type of flesh. This one had scales like a snake. Blood was pouring out of its mouth. It looked like it was ready for its next meal. I attempted to hurry, but I was in shock, and I thought I was going to die from shock or from this thing eating me. I finally got out of shock the moment it started to swim more swiftly, but the monofin could only go so fast in water. My buddy was getting a little suspicious that I hadn't come up with anything from the depths of the ocean. He looked over the boat deck and I guess could see me attempting to swim for my life as a dark shadow was inching closer. I eventually reached the boat and out of breath I told him to book it. We ended up not using the boat for the rest of the day and went home. To this day I have no idea what it was, but in all my years of experience I don't want to find out. Someone's commented, barracuda. These can get pretty damn big and their teeth look incredibly menacing. Surfing in Southern California, it's very common to see dolphins or have them swim right underneath you. I had recently moved there, so it was all new to me. I had seen them in the water with me previously. The break was pretty far out, so I'm just floating peacefully alone, waiting for a set of waves. I saw a large set of swells coming, so I got on my board and started paddling. Just as I'm about to pop up onto the board, I take a final quick glance back to make sure all is good, and a huge creature explodes out of the face of the wave right next to me. I panic and bail, scared shitless, and it felt like I did a cartoon run on top of the water, how fast I got all the way back into shore. On the beach there are people watching and talking about it, As it was still out there playing in the waves, it looked like a huge dolphin, but people thought it might be a pilot whale. Snorkeled into a school of black-tip sharks in the Great Barrier Reef. Gave me a shock how many there were. Got pulled from the water at another island. Baby turtles were hatching and crawling their way from the sand into the water. It was a pretty amazing sight, but as a safety precaution, they took everyone from the water. Kinda creepy to think that in the waves just off the shore, this might be a buffet for waiting predators. Scuba diving just off the coast of Cambodia was also rather creepy in some spots. Instructors told us the Navy had tested ordnance in the area, like a barren desert within the sea. All the reef had been blasted into sand. Curling into a ball, it was difficult to tell just how fast we were being pulled, thanks to how completely featureless it was, or where the rock formations started, / how quickly we were pulled toward them. Okay, last one. Surfing, jumping off the board, and landing on something large and alive. No idea what it was. Snorkeling, noticed in my peripheral vision massive moray eels that were longer than me, 6 foot, and about 1 foot away from me, just swimming beside me. It was no threat, but scared the crap out of me at first, more than seeing a shark in the distance. Boating, not the boat I was on, but the next one, overmoored in a very still bay. No currents, no wind or anything else. All of a sudden, the next boat looked like a giant was spinning it around by the anchor chain for about 3 minutes. All the other boats were facing the same way still. That weekend was the last time I swam there. Thank you for listening.